Chapter 20. World War II and the Atomic Bomb. 1945. The Dawn of the Nuclear Age. Aegea. World War II marked the deadliest conflict in human history, a total war that engulfed nations across the globe and caused unprecedented destruction and loss of life. By 1945, the world had already witnessed the horrors of mechanized warfare, strategic bombing, and genocide. But the war's final act introduced a new and terrifying weapon, the atomic bomb. The U.S. use of atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945 not only brought an abrupt end to the war in the Pacific, but also ushered in the nuclear age, a period in which the destructive power of atomic weapons would reshape global politics, military strategy, and the very nature of warfare. The atomic bomb represented the ultimate technological advantage, a weapon capable of destroying entire cities in seconds and causing devastation far beyond the immediate blast through radiation. Its use demonstrated the power of science and technology to transform the course of human events, but also raised profound ethical questions about the consequences of wielding such immense destructive capability. The decision to drop atomic bombs on Japan was one of the most controversial in history, and the long-term repercussions of the dawn of the nuclear age continue to shape international relations, military policy, and debates over the control and use of nuclear weapons. In this chapter, we will explore the development and use of the atomic bomb during World War II, focusing on the Manhattan Project, the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the global impact of nuclear weapons. The emergence of nuclear weapons as the ultimate tool of warfare fundamentally altered the global balance of power, introducing a new era of mutually assured destruction, MAD, and making the prevention of nuclear war one of the central challenges of the 20th and 21st centuries. The Manhattan Project, harnessing the power of the atom. The origins of the atomic bomb can be traced back to the early 20th century, when scientists began to understand the immense energy potential locked within the atom. The discovery of nuclear fission in 1938 by German scientists Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann opened the door to the possibility of developing a weapon of unprecedented power. Fission, the process by which the nucleus of an atom splits and releases energy, suggested that if a chain reaction could be controlled, it could produce a catastrophic explosion. A study of course-correction explosions. As World War II escalated, fears grew that Nazi Germany might develop such a weapon first. In 1939, Albert Einstein and physicist Leo Szilard wrote a letter to U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt warning that Germany might be working on an atomic bomb. In response, the U.S. government initiated a top-secret research program, the Manhattan Project, aimed at developing atomic weapons before the Germans. Under the scientific leadership of J. Robert Oppenheimer and military oversight by General Leslie Groves, the Manhattan Project quickly became one of the largest and most ambitious scientific endeavors in history. By 1945, after years of intense research and development, the Manhattan Project succeeded in creating two types of atomic bombs: a uranium bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, and a plutonium bomb, nicknamed Fat Man. The Trinity test, conducted on July 16, 1945, in the New Mexico desert, marked the first successful detonation of atomic bomb. The blinding flash and massive mushroom cloud that followed confirmed that the bomb worked, and that its power was far greater than even the scientists had anticipated. The test paved the way for the bomb's use in combat, as the war in the Pacific continued to rage. The decision to drop the bomb. By the summer of 1945, the war in Europe had ended with the defeat of Nazi Germany, but the war in the Pacific against Imperial Japan continued. Despite suffering devastating losses and the destruction of many of its cities from firebombing, Japan refused to surrender. The U.S. military estimated that an invasion of the Japanese mainland would result in hundreds of thousands of American casualties and millions of Japanese casualties, as Japanese forces and civilians were expected to fight to the last man. Faced with this grim prospect, the U.S. leadership under President Harry S. Truman decided to use the atomic bomb to force Japan's surrender and bring a swift end to the war. Truman believed that using the bomb would save lives by avoiding a prolonged and bloody invasion. Although there were debates within the U.S. government and military about the necessity and morality of using such a weapon, the decision was ultimately made to proceed with the atomic bombings. On August 6, 1945, a B-29 bomber named Enola Gay dropped the uranium bomb Little Boy on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. The bomb exploded with the force of approximately 15 kilotons of TNT, creating a blinding flash of light, followed by a massive shockwave that flattened buildings, ignited fires, and killed tens of thousands of people instantly. The heat from the explosion reached temperatures of several thousand degrees Celsius, causing horrific burns and vaporizing those closest to the epicenter. An estimated 700,000 to 800,000 people died immediately, and many more succumbed to injuries and radiation sickness in the days and weeks that followed. 3 days later, on August 19, 1945, the U.S. dropped a second bomb, Fat Man, on the city of Nagasaki. The plutonium bomb, though more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb, with an estimated yield of 21 kilotons, detonated in a less densely populated area, but it still caused immense destruction, killing an estimated 400,000 due to radiation exposure and injuries. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki stunned the world. The sheer scale of the destruction, combined with the lingering effects of radiation, which caused long-term health problems and genetic damage, revealed the terrifying new reality of nuclear weapons. On August 15, 1945, just days after the second bombing, Japan announced its surrender, bringing an end to World War II. The impact of the atomic bomb, the birth of the nuclear age. The use of atomic bombs on Japan marked the beginning of the nuclear age, a period in which the existence of nuclear weapons would shape global politics, military strategy, and international relations. The bombings demonstrated the immense power of nuclear technology, but they also raised profound ethical and moral questions about the use of such weapons, particularly against civilian populations. For the Japanese people, the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were an unprecedented human tragedy. In addition to the tens of thousands who died immediately, many more suffered from the long-term effects of radiation exposure, including cancer, genetic mutations, and other illnesses. The survivors, known as hibakusha, faced physical and psychological scars that would last for the rest of their lives. The cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were reduced to rubble, and the environmental and health consequences of the bombings continued for generations. The bombings also had a profound impact on the global balance of power. In the immediate aftermath of World War II, the United States emerged as the world's leading superpower, its possession of atomic weapons giving it a decisive military advantage. However, this advantage was short-lived. In 1949, the Soviet Union successfully tested its own atomic bomb, marking the beginning of the Cold War arms race. The two superpowers, the US and the Soviet Union, would spend the next several decades building up massive nuclear arsenals, each capable of annihilating the other in the event of war. The concept of mutually assured destruction, MAD, became the foundation of nuclear deterrence during the Cold War. The knowledge that any nuclear conflict would result in the total destruction of both the attacker and the defender created a fragile peace, as both the US and the Soviet Union sought to avoid direct confrontation while maintaining their nuclear stockpiles as a deterrent. The ethical debate: was the bomb necessary? The decision to use atomic bombs on Japan has been the subject of intense debate since 1945. Supporters of the decision argue that the bombings were necessary to bring about Japan's surrender and to save lives by avoiding a bloody invasion of the Japanese mainland. They point to Japan's refusal to surrender, despite heavy bombing, and its determination to continue fighting as evidence that the atomic bombs were the only way to end the war quickly. Critics, however, argue that Japan was already on the verge of surrender and that other options, such as a demonstration of the bomb's power or a blockade, could have forced Japan's capitulation without the need for such devastating loss of life. Some historians also argue that the use of the atomic bomb was motivated in part by a desire to intimidate the Soviet Union and establish the US as the dominant post-war power. The moral implications of targeting civilian populations with such a destructive weapon continue to be a source of controversy. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki killed tens of thousands of civilians, raising questions about the ethics of using weapons of mass destruction in warfare. The debate over the necessity and morality of the bombings reflects broader concerns about the role of technology in warfare and the responsibility of those who wield it. The global legacy of the nuclear age. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki fundamentally altered the course of human history, marking the beginning of the nuclear age and forever changing the nature of warfare. The existence of nuclear weapons created a new kind of global insecurity, as the potential for mass destruction became a constant threat. The arms race between the US and the Soviet Union, coupled with the proliferation of nuclear weapons to other nations, made the prevention of nuclear war a central concern of international diplomacy throughout the second half of the 20th century. The creation of the United Nations in 1945 and the subsequent efforts to establish treaties like the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty (NPT) of 1968 reflected the global recognition that nuclear weapons posed an existential threat to humanity. Despite these efforts, the world continues to grapple with the dangers of nuclear proliferation as more nations seek to develop or acquire nuclear weapons. The nuclear age also had a profound impact on culture and society. The fear of nuclear war became a defining feature of the Cold War era, shaping everything from government policies to popular culture. The threat of nuclear annihilation inspired countless films, books, and artworks that explored the psychological and ethical dilemmas of living in a world where human civilization could be destroyed in an instant. Conclusion. The use of the atomic bomb in World War II marked the dawn of the nuclear age, a period in which the destructive power of nuclear weapons reshaped global politics, military strategy, and the very concept of warfare. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki demonstrated the terrifying potential of modern technology to cause mass destruction, while also raising profound ethical questions about the use of such weapons. The emergence of nuclear weapons as the ultimate technological advantage fundamentally altered the balance of power in the post-war world, leading to the Cold War and the arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union. The legacy of the nuclear age continues to shape international relations as nations seek to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons while managing the risks posed by existing arsenals. As we look back on the events of 1945, the lessons